It's Tom Knight here again. Thank you for tuning in, if you have tuned in. If you haven't tuned in, you can't see any of this, so it doesn't really matter. I'm going to read you another story today. I hope you guys are all fine and well and happy. I'm quite enjoying being at home. It's a good time for reading and writing and drawing and listening and playing and making and sleeping. So I hope you guys are doing a lot of that too. The eagle-eyed viewers amongst you that watched my last video might notice something a bit different today about my studio. Can you tell what it is? I emptied my bin. Yeah, I know. So this is master storytelling at work here, because what I did in the last video was set up some sort of conflict, and then today I've resolved it. So you're getting all this stuff for free, which is amazing. This little sarcastic emoji face popping up there. And if a sarcastic emoji face hasn't popped up there, it means that I've tried to work out how to do that a bit later on and just couldn't be bothered and couldn't figure it out. What do you want from me? There's lots of things to do. I've got to make spaghetti bolognese taste interesting to my family 3 days in a row. And there's a lot of Netflix to watch. Actually, I've watched all of Netflix. I've finished it. Anyway, I'm going to read you another story today, and it's called Jimmy Finnigan's Wildwood Band. And this is one of my favourite ones. And I snuck a lot of things in to this book. The nice thing about drawing pictures in books is that sometimes you can put little secret things in there that only really mean something to you and your family. I believe they're sometimes called Easter eggs. So in this book there's quite a lot of Easter eggs, and I'm going to show you what they are right at the end. But first, let me read you the story. Jimmy Finnigan's Wildwood Band. My neighbours are mowing their lawn next door, so if you can hear a weird noise, that's what that is. This is the village where Jimmy Finnigan lived. Have you ever seen a nicer place? The park was so nice that Mr. Appleyard, the park keeper, wouldn't let anyone walk on the grass. The police station was so nice, and there was hardly any crime, so Sergeant Marchant spent his time knitting jumpers for cats and dogs. Jimmy's school was especially nice, and his teacher, Miss Primula, was so nice that she even let the children come to school on a Saturday. There was only one thing that wasn't nice about where Jimmy Finnigan lived, and that was the woods. You wouldn't call them nice at all. In fact, you would call them wild. Beg your pardon. They were so wild that everyone from the village warned the children to stay away. Those woods are a disgrace. That grass looks like it hasn't been cut in years. I'd keep away from those woods if I were you. There are wild animals in there, and they're all naked. We won't be going into the woods today, children. The toilets are woefully inadequate. Jimmy's mum and dad didn't want him going into the woods either. You'll make a dreadful mess of your clothes. Why don't you have a look in the attic for a nice board game? But Jimmy found something quite different. Those are records, explained Dad. It's how people listened to music in the olden days. And he showed Jimmy how to play one. First, Jimmy's head started to bob. Then his bottom started to wiggle. And soon he was waving his arms about and jumping all over the place. This is wild! And soon, Jimmy Finnigan started to play his own music. Soon, music was all Jimmy could think about. Are you combing your hair, Jimmy? Yes, Mum. Are you putting on your tie, Jimmy? Yes, Mum. He dreamed of forming his own band. So he designed a poster. Musicians wanted for rock band. Must own instruments, no time wasters. But for some reason, nobody called. So then Jimmy put up a poster in the one place where everyone was telling him not to go. But the next day, that had been taken down too. I give up! Screamed Jimmy Finnigan. But just then, Jimmy heard a strange noise. He started to follow it. His head started to bob. His bottom started to wiggle. His arms started to wave about. And he started jumping all over the place. Suddenly, Jimmy found himself standing in a clearing with 3 of the wildest creatures he'd ever seen. We saw your poster, said the wolf. We wanted to join your band, said the beaver. We were just practicing to make sure we were good enough, said the bear. Well, I think you sound amazing, shouted Jimmy, and he plugged in his guitar. Meanwhile, in the village, loud noises were heard coming from the woods. What is all that hullabaloo? I'm sure I saw Jimmy Finnigan wandering over there earlier. He's been acting very odd lately. We'll have to go and rescue him. And so the villagers walked into the wild woods. Finally, they stepped into the clearing. First, they froze. Then, they gawped. But then their heads started to bob, and their bottoms started to wiggle. Their arms started to wave about, and then they started jumping all over the place. By the time Jimmy and the band noticed the villagers were there, everyone was dancing. It was wild. After that, things were a bit different in Jimmy's village. The school was different. The police station was different. And the park was very different. This is the village where Jimmy Finnigan lives. It's still a really nice place to live, but now it's just a little bit wild too. And there we go. That was Jimmy Finnigan's Wildwood Band by me, Tom Knight. And I told you that I was going to show you some of the little secret things that I put in this book, and I'm going to try and find them. So the first one, I drew some of this book when I was on holiday with my friends in France. And one of my friends has a daughter called Betty Jones. And Betty Jones is an excellent person. And when I was doing these are called the end papers. And you put these at the beginning and the end of picture books sometimes. And I was drawing these when Betty was sitting with me watching me. And we decided that we were going to put in a tiny little bee. Can you see the tiny little bee? That is Betty's bee. And he pops up a couple more times in the book, and I'm going to show you where. So what else did I put in here? Well, there's some things up in the loft that I snuck in, and I'm going to show you. So this is the scene where Jimmy Finnigan goes into the loft. And if you can see here, there's a poster for a band called the Jangles. And they were playing at a place called the Townhouse, which is a place in Colchester where I used to play my guitar when I was younger. And the date for it is November the 13th, and that's my wife's birthday. And leaning up in the corner here is my banjo. I sometimes play in a band called the Ragged String Band, and that's the banjo that I play. And down here, can you see what that is? That was my favourite toy that I owned when I was a kid. That's the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars. And just about the time that I was doing this page, this is a guy called David Bowie, and he died around about the time that I was drawing this page, and so I put a little dedication into him. And I thought we could have a little competition, because if you can see here, I'm going to hold these here and talk to you from under the book. There's 4 albums on the floor of Jimmy Finnigan's bedroom when he's learning to play his guitar, and those are actual albums, and I think that your mum or dad, or your mum and dad, might know what these albums are. So if you guys together can sit down and try and figure out what those albums are, and then write to me, either on Facebook or Instagram, then the first message I get that gets all of those albums correct, I'll send you a book. A highly disinfected book in a very, very scrubbed clean envelope. Yeah, and so when you're talking to your mum or dad about those albums, maybe you could listen to some of the music, and it would be a nice thing for you guys to do together. And here is Betty's bee again. Can you see? And the last place that the bee appears is on the end papers. But this time he's wearing a little hat because Sergeant Marchant has knitted all of the animals some clothes. So there it was. That was Jimmy Finnigan's Wildwood Band. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to make a little craft activity video for you guys now. So hopefully you can get to that and upload that too. And I'll see you very soon. Stay safe, stay well. Goodbye.